to show you a variation that I did on the Celtic Cross. I'm going to pass this out now. In the sense that one of the things that's problematic about doing card readings, in my opinion, is sometimes we really kind of want a yes or a no, is this a go or not? And, you know, the Celtic Cross doesn't always give you that kind of sense. So what I did is I developed, it's kind of an interesting variation on the Celtic Cross. It uses some of the same elements. So this is a 6-card spread. It's a simple one. Has everybody got the handout in front of them? And what I did is, I did it this way. So you start in the center, you lay 2 as your obstacle card, and then you're going to go around. And the first position is pretty much the same in many ways, but the question you would be asking, so this is a yes or no question. So let's say the question would be, should I take that new job, right? So the first card is going to be in relationship to the person who's asking the question on a deep level. It'll be, and the question is going to be, will it be good for me? So in other words, in terms of taking the job, let's take that as an example. So if the person's question is, should I take this job? The first card is going to be, will it be good for them in terms of how much they're going to grow internally, how it will affect their health, how, whether or not it'll make them happy. So it's that kind of good, you know? So will the job be good for you? The second card, or the obstacle card, is the question would be, how hard will it be? And so if you got a really positive card in this position, then you'd say, well, this looks like it's going to be a pretty easy deal in some ways. If you got a really difficult card, and again, you would probably have to interpret that. What would be a bad card or what would be a good card based on the context. So, for example, if you got a, if you're asking a question about work and you got a card like the 5 of Pentacles, which is not a very good aspect for work or money, then you might say, well, you're going to have to struggle to make this work. You're not going to, money isn't going to come easily. It's going to be an uphill push, that sort of thing. On the other hand, if you had like the 10 of Pentacles or the 9 of Pentacles, both of which are, pretty good cards in terms of money and stuff like that, I'd say, well, it doesn't look like, this is going to be too difficult. I mean, in your obstacle position, well, actually, there are a lot of ways you could interpret that. All right, I'm going to think about that. This is what happens when you make up examples. And then you suddenly think, okay, so if we're looking at it as an obstacle, the 9 of Pentacles, for example, could be a card of overindulgence. So you could say, well, this, job is going to present you with a lot of opportunities to potentially get yourself in trouble. So for example, let's say it's the kind of job where, like in the advertising industry, where there's a very fast-paced life, a lot of, kind of high roller type activity, then a 9 of Pentacles could be an obstacle, and then it might be that the job is going to actually, potentially lead you astray. So you think about that. Yeah.
John had something similar in his reading, and I thought it might have been that he's got it really great and comfortable now.
Right.
So that might actually get in the way of making any changes.
That's also true. That's very true when you're doing a meta reading. Is that sometimes a good card in the obstacle position is exactly that. It's just too easy to not get on with it. Right. That's a very good point. And especially if the cards around it support it. The third card in this reading is the energy right for it? This is very similar to the incoming energy that we talked about in the Celtic Cross. So what you're going to look for is, and I'm reading this in a kind of binary way because it's a binary question. It's a yes or no question. So is the energy right for it? If you get a card that seems positive in terms of, what the question is, then yes, the energy's good. If you get a card that's not going to fit, then it's not so good. Number 4, which is in the bottom, is a little bit like the position in the house. Will my support systems be there? And there again, you're going to look to see whether or not that card fits with what it is the question's about. So, for example, if you had, you were asking, like, should I marry, Joe Blow? And your question is, will my support system be there? And you get something like the 9 of Pentacles, where the woman's standing alone in her garden, and it's a card of independence. Well, nope. You're going to probably have to go that one alone. On the other hand, if you had something like the 10 of Pentacles, the happy home, okay, people are going to stand behind you on that one. So you would look at it that way. And this is a much more simplistic kind of layout because it's a simple question. Number 5 is, do I have the right resources? Now, by resources, what I mean here is resources of all kinds, whether they're financial resources, emotional resources, things of that sort. The right ideas. So, for example, if it was a career question, right resources would be about capabilities. Or if it was starting a new business, it might be about capitalization. If it's about romance, it might be about, whether or not the person, like if it's about romance and the question is, do I have the right resources, and a hermit comes up, well, I don't know. That doesn't look too good to me, or if you add if it's about, getting married and it's the, well, that's an interesting question. What would that be? I'm just thinking of the 2 of Cups, which is about, just feeling the urge to get moving in relationships. But if that's a very immature energy. So if that's in the resource position on a question like, should I get married, I would be concerned. It's a 2, 2s are like something in its nation state. It's a very beginning state. It's not like developed energy. On the other hand, if you had something like the 6 of Cups, that would be a pretty good thing to have on a relationship question. That indicates, ability to be harmonious in relationships. And then finally, 6, outcome, is it a go? What I think is interesting about this, and I thought long and hard when I designed this particular layout, because, the outcome is always the hardest one to figure out. And I thought, so the question is it a go? And one of the things you want to look at is whether or not you get an action card here. So, because that's what indicates go, So, if you get an action card in this position, that's a good thing. If you get a card of waiting, like the 4 of Swords, or almost any of the 4s, or if you get a card of retreat, not so good. So this is just a very simple yes or no. Let's play with it for a moment, because I think that should be an easy one. And here again, actually, before we play with it, let's look at the way that the cards might interrelate. So when we look at the obstacle card, how hard will it be? Once again, you want to pay attention to this crossbar, because this is your resources, and this is the how hard, or this is how hard it will be, and this is there good energy for it? So you want to pay attention to how these 3 cards interrelate. So for example, if my obstacle card, let's say this is a card of taking a new career. The question is, should I take this new job? And my obstacle card is something like, well, let's just draw a card for the heck of it. Oh, Queen of Pentacles. Queen of Pentacles. Now this is about career. Queen of Pentacles as an obstacle. And then let's do something for, that's how hard will it be? That's a pretty positive card. Is the energy right for it? Oh, that's interesting. 4 of Cups. And then we're going to go, do I have the right resources? The 4. Okay, now that's interesting. So we ask, how hard will it be? This is about a new job. We have the Queen of Pentacles. That's generally a card of abundance. And then we have, on either side of it, we have 4s, which are cards of stability. So that's, but the 4 of Cups is often a card of discontent. And that's in number 3, which is the energy right for it? So now this is an example of what you were talking about, Susie. So the obstacle may be that the person is pretty comfortable. They're pretty settled in, you know? And then over here, where is the energy right for it, there's the sense of you're being offered something, but you're likely to refuse. So the guy's being offered a cup from the clouds, but he's likely to refuse. There's a sense of, you know. And then over here on resources, do you have the right resources? This is a card of celebration. And so what if I had that come up on a yes or no question about a career, one of the things that I would kind of say is, well, you know, it's kind of interesting here. You know, you've got all these kind of nice looking cards, but they also to indicate that you're not so likely to move, you know? And it's very interesting that you have a 4 on either side. So what that seems to indicate is that it's probably going to end up being a no. And the reason is because you're pretty settled in what it is you're doing. Right? Does that make sense? And then when we look at, you know, the outcome, is it a go? And when we look at the support system actually, the way I like to think about the support system is I like to think about these 3 together, you know? So, you know, support system is, are you going to get support from your immediate environment? This is, do you have the internal support you need? Do you have the internal resources? And this is just, is the real impulse there, right? So you're going to kind of look at those things. So this is a really simple kind of spread, but it gets really interesting when you do it. So let's all do that. Everybody take your cards, let's split up, and I want you to do some of these and then we'll look at them. So let's take, say, 10 minutes apiece, all right? And so how's this working?
Good, great. Good.
Yeah, so you feel you're getting a sense of it? Now, there are some things that came up that were pretty interesting. So here's a question, here's a yes and no, and this is a great example of how it gets a little sticky, all right? So the question was, give me the question again, John.
I was wondering if it's the right time to take courses to be a personal trainer and reactivate the areas of interest in massage therapy and physical.
Right, so moving into being a healer.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just gonna wrap it up.
Very good.
Yeah,
Synced
and
into
I'm gonna
the-
crunch that into a question. All right. So is this a good time for him to be pursuing the healing arts? All right. So his first card, which is, will it be good for him? The Chariot. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now the Chariot, that's a powerful beginning. The Chariot is a card of balance. It's a card of getting where you're going, establishing your sights on the, you know, establish high thy mind, that best of charioteers. That's a pretty good thing. It's also a trump, which is also a good thing. And so it kind of says, yeah, you're in the right ballpark, buddy. But then he gets some cards that kind of make it a little confusing, right? He gets crossed by, guess what? Another trump, the Fool. Right? Now, before I go on with that, he has the Fool there, and that's, you know, how hard will it be? And then he has over here on, is the energy right for it, the Queen of Cups. Okay? So I'm looking at that, and I'm going, okay, he wants to become a healer. Well, is the energy right for it? The Queen of Cups is very intuitive. So in that sense, yeah, that's a good energy, but it's water of water. And then when we combine water of water with the Fool, what I end up thinking is, okay, you know, this might be a very good thing for him, but he better get his feet on the ground. And he's going to have a lot of intuitive energy and a lot of stuff coming up, but he's going to have to figure out how to corral it. So this is an example of where there's already a kind of a positive yes, but
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have to work with these factors. Then we go down here to, will he have what's his support system like? And he has the Five of Swords. So that sort of indicates to me that you're going it on your own, buddy, in the sense that, your family or your other, closest support systems will probably be a little conflicted about it. They may not be against it, but they aren't going to be necessarily for it either. Fives are about but here's the interesting thing. It's not active opposition. This is mental. And Susie nailed it pretty well when she said this is a card about where you might have to let go of some things. So when you put that in the support place, your support structure, people around you might have to let go of some of their cherished ideas about what it is you need to do in order to get on board. So here again, this is not a flat out negative, but it does indicate that if he was going into this with the idea that everybody was going to be fully supporting him and giving him a good shove and a push, that wouldn't be so good, On the other hand, then we get over here to does he have the right resources? And I love this because he's got the Two of Cups. And what's that over the two cups? It's the caduceus, the symbol of healing. Right, and it's also a 2, which is about beginnings.
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably pretty positive, that it's going to take him in some new directions, but that there's energy for it. His outcome card, there we go, 10 of Cups. That's a pretty happy outcome. I'd say, yeah, that's okay. So what do we come up with as a yes or a no? What we say is, yes, this will be good for you, and yes, you can have a good outcome, but you better be prepared to encounter some resistance among your personal support system, and you're going to have to really get a clear vision of where you're going. Otherwise, you're just going to be the fool. You're going to be floating along, and you are going to have a much harder time getting where you want to go. Okay? Does that make sense? Anybody else have any really interesting ones they want to look at? All right, then here's what I want to do. I'm really zipping along here, but this was just simple. Go home and play with it. Play with it a lot.
Yeah, I'd like your feedback on mine, if you don't mind.
All right, tell me what you had. What's your first card? Well, first of all, what's the question?
Lecturer as an adjunct career.
Okay, should you take up lecturing as an adjunct career?
Yes.
Oh, that's your question. Okay, or will that be a good thing? All right, so
Right.
what's your first card?
Hanged man.
Oh, wow. Hangman, okay. What's your second card?
Emperor.
Oh, Jesus, David. Emperor, okay. What's your third card?
Lovers.
Were you reading with all only major arcanas, or did it just happen this way?
I get these a lot.
Okay, 4.
9 wands.
Ah.
Okay. What's your fifth card?
4 cups.
Heavy juju.
And what's your sixth card?
Strength.
Wow.
What?
Okay, well, what's the first thing we know about this?
It's important.
Yeah, it's important. He's got a ton of trumps. Boy, oh boy. He starts with a trump. He's crossed by a trump. He ends with a trump. And then the other really important position in this one is the energy available to it. Okay. Well, let's start with the hangman. Will this be good for you? The hangman. Yeah, if you do this, you're going to have to really put yourself out there. You're going to hang yourself on the tree, my friend. But of course, you will become more powerful by doing so. And one of the things that I find particularly interesting that you would get the hangman for this is that the hangman, what does the hangman get when he goes through his suffering? He gets the runes, the words of power. So for a lecturer, that's interesting. You will find your voice if you pursue this path. Your obstacle is the emperor. And that's an interesting obstacle. Let me think about that for a minute. I think you know what it is? Okay, I'm gonna really go. I know this guy really well, so I can do this. So I'm gonna go backwards across here to this resources. You have the Four of Cups, which is an interesting card to get, and especially when I start to think of the Emperor, which is the divine king or the natural leader or the one that, and that being an obstacle. And you know what I think it is that you have within you the ability, you know, the Four of Cups, I'm thinking about, you know, that fact of having that emotional, that force, that emotional force, that persuasiveness, and it's in that stable form of the Four. But the problem is that there's a part of you that doesn't buy it. It doesn't believe in it, or you aren't owning it or acknowledging it in yourself. And that's why the Emperor is your obstacle, because there's a way where you just have not stepped into your own power. You haven't claimed the place of leadership. And that's an obstacle for you, but that's really interesting when you look at the Hangman, because the Hangman is the card of someone who has to really put themselves through what is a personal torment, what is difficult for themselves in order to really achieve their power and thereby become Odin, the leader, the king of the gods, the magician god. So that's an interesting thing. Now when we come across over here to is the energy good for, you have the Lovers, which tells us that yes, this is a carrot that could indeed take you a long way in the journey to your higher self. That's a good energy, because remember about the Lovers is about us being inspired. But the way that we get inspired is we're attracted to something. And so we go toward that attraction, and then that ultimately leads us to inspiration. Down here, your support system, the Nine of Wands. Yes, qualified support is there for you. The Nine of Wands is about, you know, having been through a lot of times, and I would think this would probably refer to your family, in the sense that, you know, you guys have weathered stuff, you've been through some stuff together, been through some tough times, and now there's strength there that will be available to you. So there's that kind of Nine of Wands, having gotten through the thick of things. So I think there will be some support for you there. Strength as an outcome, that's a good card. That's a good card to have, because that's about being able to overcome something by really learning how to go with the energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's about how I read it. It's good to hear you agree.
Yeah, I think though for you, David, you got to really pay attention to this crossbar here. You know, you have to look at the ways in which, okay, I'm going to say a hard thing. You have to look at the ways in which sometimes we don't step into our power, we don't claim leadership because it's actually easier not to. And we excuse it by saying, well, I'm really not that, blah, 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 you know. It's kind of a modesty thing, but it really isn't. It's like not taking up what you could take up. Because the one thing that's really true about the true king, the true emperor, is they take it up because they have to take it up, not because they know they can do it, not because they even believe they can do it. They take it up because they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions about how I got there? Does that make sense?
Would you say what you said before about the cards 5, 1, and 3 and the connection across, or was it 5, 2, and 3?
5, 2, and 3.
5, 2, and 3.
Okay, well, Four of Cups, let's think about that for a moment. The Four of Cups is an interesting thing because you have water, which likes to flow, and it's in a stable form, which is a good thing. But it also has, there's also in it, there's a kind of discontent that we get when we're in that place. And in terms of resources, one of the ways that I'm looking at that is I'm really thinking about the fact that one of the ways that you can look at the Four of Cups is where you're really actually being offered something, but there's a little refusal going on. So if it's in his resources, what that tells me is he's got some resources that he's not copping to. And one of the reasons why I really went with that interpretation, which is a little bit out there on the edge, is because of the Emperor. And I'm looking at that Divine King crossing the Hangman. And, you know, and that's where I start thinking, so how is that a refusal? What is that about? Okay, but then when I back it up into that Four of Cups, then I think about, you know, what would have happened if Arthur had said, I'm not pulling that sword out of the stone. I don't think I'm strong enough. And look at all those other guys, and they did it, and they couldn't do it. I'm just going to look like a bloody idiot.
History would be different.
Yeah. You know, I mean, it's going back to those of you who were there for my lecture on the hero's journey. It's about hearing the call, and then you have to overcome the guardian at the threshold, which is often an internal voice going, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? You think you're an emperor? You know? This is kind of like where sometimes you have to let the cards tell you a story. What I do is I hold the cards in my hand after the person has shuffled them. And usually I do this, the first part I do silently because I don't want to freak anybody out and it's Hebrew and all that weird stuff. And they're already thinking that I'm a witch doctor, so I don't want to add to that. But what I would be doing is I make the Kabbalistic cross, so I just kind of brush the cards to my forehead, and it's internally I'm going to be going, Ate Malkuth, so you're bringing it down through your body. Malkuth, the kingdom, Vegebura, Vegedula, Leolum, Amen. So for that's I am the power. I am the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever. This is the end of the Our Father. So you know, I usually just do that, and then I hold, and then I'll say, may the truth be with us. May we be given the power to see, the wisdom to understand, and the courage to act. I ask this in thy name. And then if you have a deity that you pray to, you can kind of silently say that name within yourself. So that's all I do. And then what I do is I just hold the cards and I wait. And as I'm saying those words, may the truth be with us, I'm feeling my own energy, the deck in a sense filling with energy. And usually, you know, everybody has their own signal. It may just come as a sense of, okay, I'm ready. For me, I always get a shiver. It's like a kind of a shiver that goes through me. And sometimes it goes through me when I pick up the cards and I'm like, oh, okay, well then. So, you know, I don't like to read unless I get that. Because it just means I'm not there for whatever reason. So that's that. All right. Let's look at this next reading. This is your relationship spread. What happened? I had one on my desk and it vanished. Oh well, I guess I know what it is. Yeah, bring me one, if you would. This is again a spread that I developed many years ago, and because I never was satisfied with the kind of information I got from the Celtic Cross for relationships. I wanted more information. And so I developed this spread. And the way it works is you have two sort of Celtic Cross type things, but they're not read as Celtic crosses. So over here I have, here's my first card, my second card. And then the way that I do it is, I think about this as like I'm looking at the wrong one. I go over here, I think about it like a compass, right? This down here is north, south is up here, right? So therefore we would have east and we would have west. And the reason why I do that determines my order. So here's east over here, number 3. East is air. You have to remember your quarters and your attributes. East is air. Summer is next. And that would be card number 4. That's fire. Card number 5 is water. Card number 6 is earth. And then I have the same thing over here. So I'm going to have 1, 2, that's my obstacle. 3, whoops. Sorry, wrong side. 3, this is air. 4. This is fire. 5. This is water. 6. This is earth. So what this represents are, here's the questioner. And this is their significant other, or hopeful significant other, right? And the first thing I want to do is get a fix on, in any relationship question, the two parties. So the way that I like to do that is, the first card, number 1, represents how that person feels about being in relationship. Do they want to be in a relationship? Are they relationship adverse? Are they skittish? Are they scared? Not so much about the other party, but just about relationships in general.
Will you please say that again? The first card?
The first card on each of these, right, represents how the person feels about being in relationship at that time. Now, if you're reading for people that are in a relationship, like, a serious long-term affair or a marriage or something like that, I think that first card would also include how they feel about being in that particular relationship, right? And then the second card is your obstacle. That would be the thing that they don't like, or what gets in the way of them being in a relationship. Where's their resistance? What's the obstacle? So, for example, if I'm doing a marriage reading, I got a couple in, and I used to do marital counseling back in the day. Oh God, what a train wreck that often is. And, I always get curious. I just kind of throw the cards just to see what I would come up with, And so, let's say, over here we have, the guy, and, the first card that I get for a relationship for him is the Lovers. So here's this guy who's really looking to his wife to fulfill him at a certain level, to inspire him, to help him grow. And then I go over there and I throw the first card for her, and what I come up with is, the 9 of Pentacles. Oops. She's like all about her independence, and he's all about really wanting to connect on this deep level. That's a problem you often see when women are menopausal and the guys are going through andropause. They're suddenly really wanting to deepen into a relationship, and she wants to go off and have a career. Oh dear. That's not a good match, right? And then, maybe the obstacles, So, maybe the obstacle is, what if the guy gets, let's just suppose we're back here with the guy who has the Lovers. He's looking for this wonderful connection, and then the obstacle is the 7 of Cups. Ooh boy, he's getting tired of Miss I'm in my own garden, thank you, ma'am, and he's looking around. He's looking around. He's got his eye on some babes. And over there, her obstacle is the Queen of Swords. Fuck him. I'm tired of him. I've been picking up his socks for the last 20 years. You see, you get my point? All right, it's a lot of fun, yeah.
Could that also be a sports car?
Mm-hmm. You bet. It could be a sports car. It could be anything. But, all those goodies. The guy, although, actually, if the opening card is the Lovers, probably not. Probably not. His weakness is going to be women because he's looking for fulfillment. Sports cards would be another kind of thing. But yeah, that is often an issue. All right. Then we have these element cards. And what I just thought about when I developed this was I thought about what are the 4 aspects of relationship. And so, I immediately went to the elements. So when you look at the first card, which is air is about the intellectual aspect of the relationship. So if you get, for example, a guy who's like, for air, he has the King of Swords. He's a thinker. He's an intellectual. And then over here on her air, you have something like, you know, the Three of Cups. That's not a very good match, because he's all about thinking, and she's really watery, and she's all about, you know, dancing and being in the moment. That's not a very good match. On the other hand, you might have, let's say we're going back to that initial couple I was just talking about, and he's got the King of Cups, so he's intellectual, which is partly why he's all interested in, you know, deepening and being inspired. And maybe she has over here in air, she has something like, what would be a really good example? She might have the Hierophant, or she might have some other rather intellectual card. And then I'd say, well, intellectually, these two are a good match. You know, they may be sort of in a different place right now about what they're looking for in a relationship, but they're intellectually, they're a good match. So what you look for is, are the two things fitting together or not? So if you have one person who's all about ideas and the other person is like, you know, they're all about action. You know, they really want to just go play soccer. Maybe not a good match. When you get up here to the fire, there are two aspects to fire. The first and the most obvious in relationship is passion. And by passion, I don't mean love in that sweeter sense. I mean, you know, is there any heat? You know, sexual connection, chemistry. Also, though, what can play itself out in the fire level is power. So those are the two aspects that you're going to be looking at. And once again, you want to see whether or not, you know, there's congruence between the two. So, for example, if you have, you know, really hot card on one side and a really not hot card on the other side, that might indicate that one of the parties is, you know, pretty strongly attracted to the other, but for the other not so much, you know. So you want to look at that. Water has to do with the emotional connection. Does that other person feel good? You know, are these two people in the same place emotionally? And one of the things you want to remember when you're doing this 4 element stuff is you want to remember the oppositions. So for example, air and earth are opposed. Fire and water are opposed. So if you get a fire card in a water position, not so good. If you get an earth card in an air position, not so good. Because they're opposites, right? And then finally you get down to earth. This is the practical part of relationships, you know? The ability to make money, the ability to, you know, cook and clean and maintain a home life together. So, you know, there once again, you want to see how the two parties connect. We'll do one in a minute, and then you'll see. So those are you have the person's general attitude, you have the obstacles, and then you have the 4 aspects of the relationship and how the two parties compare. Now then you have these next 2 cards here, and these 2 cards, what did I number them?
13, 14.
13 and 14. Yeah, because actually I should have gone 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, around there. But anyhow, so 13 and 14. This is like, what does each person bring to the relationship? So, this person, let's say for 13, we get, we turn up the card of 2 of Cups. So let's say now at this point we're not reading about an established couple, we're reading about, you know, you just met somebody, right? And that's the card that they bring to the relationship, the 2 of the Cups. Well, that's somebody who's looking to be in a relationship. They're interested in commitment. 6 of Cups, ditto. You know, that would be good. But on the other hand, let's suppose over here, party number 2, what we get here is
The devil.
the 8 of Cups. The 8 of Cups. They're on their way out the door. You know? So they ain't going to be around very much, right? Or, yeah, if they get the devil, that if somebody's addictive. That's what they have to bring to the relationship. That's a little scary. All right, so then we get down to the final, we have 3 triads. You have the past, and this can mean one of 2 things. If it's a long-standing, if it's a relationship with some history, then this is the history of the relationship. If it's a brand new relationship that it doesn't have history, then what you would do is you would read the triads this way. The card on the left applies to the person on the left, the card on the right applies to the person on the right, and the card in the middle is sort of what happens when you crunch those 2 things together. And so what this would be is the past of person 1, the past of person 2. So maybe person 1 has had a long string of relationships in which her heart has been broken, and person 2 has had a long string of relationships in which he has had, needy, demanding women. The outcome on that might be not so good. It might be something like, say, the 5 of Wands, conflict. Or you would look at just, the history of the relationship, in which case, once again, you would sort of look at, what's been going on in the past and how it's culminated. And then the middle triad is the present. And what we're reading here is, so let me back up for just a moment. Right here, this is really pretty much about, how each person is organized. What are their personality traits in relationship? Down here, and then this is what each of them brings coming into the relationship. Down here in the present, we say, once again, each party contributes to an energy, an overall energy. And so you would say, this is the energy of the present. And then you have your final triad. This is the potential outcome. So there again, you look at this triad in terms of where the relationship could actually go. Then we have this thing up here where I said on your sheet of paper it's deck. So when I lay the cards out, I lay them out, and then I put the deck in that position. And after you've got done reading this whole complicated thing, you say, and the essence of it all is... Oh my God. Leave that one. Anyway, so that's just kind of like a final card to sum it all up. And it's amazing how
Close it is.
how amazing that is. So card number 1 is the 2 of Cups, crossed by the 7 of Pentacles. Ooh, that's interesting. Air, 7 of Wands, fire, Page of Wands, water, Hermit, earth, 3 of Pentacles. Over here we have our other person, the World, crossed by the 8 of Pentacles, and we have air, the Emperor, fire, the Cups, Page of Cups, water, Knight of Pentacles, and then we come down to earth, 9 of Cups. What each person brings. The Hangman, the other person brings the 3 of Swords. First triad, the past, 2 of Swords, Queen of Wands, 8 of Wands, the present, Ace of Wands, Queen of Swords, woo, Wheel of Fortune, and then out come 5 of Pentacles, Knight of Swords, Chariot. All right. All right, you want to tell me who this is, or?
Dan and I.
Okay, you and Dan. All right. All right, so I'm going to start by reading both of them. So this is a relationship with history. Okay, this is a marriage.
Now, when you pull those for like a couple, do you automatically assume the first pull is the male or female?
You can choose. I tend to
You can
put the
choose.
woman on the left
Okay.
and the man on the right. It's just completely arbitrary choice on my part. I do that because of the old Western thing of left
Left
being the
is
female and
female.
right being the male, which of course is totally screwed up if you're in Chinese medicine because it's the reverse, but oh well. We won't go down that road. Alright, so what I'm seeing is it's very interesting. He's got a major arcana in terms of his relationship, how he is about relationship, what he thinks about relationship. She has doesn't have a major arcana, but she has a big card of commitment. She has the two of cups. So one of the things that I can tell you right away is both of them want to be in this. She's got this two of cups, which is about the idea of really forming partnership. And for her, relationship is about emotional growth. Twos, that's that impulse to begin something, to really grow yourself. And this is of course a card of marriage. So, that's a very strong thing for her. He has the card of the world, which is really interesting. The only thing that what that says to me about Dan is two things. One is that this relationship opened up an entire new world to him, but also that I think for him to really fully develop himself, he really needs relationship. That's really kind of clear. And it is the world to him. I think he wouldn't know what to do without you, actually. Obstacles, patience for you. This is a garden. You're going to be cultivating it probably for many years. And there are going to be times when you're going to be leaning on that hoe of yours, looking at it and going, So you got to have patience. And that's your obstacle. That's not a bad one though, It's more just, yeah. What he has is the Eight of Pentacles, which is interesting that you both have Pentacles. But, for you, there's a little bit of impatience about, is this ever going to happen? And for him, he just has to keep the nose to the grindstone. Being in a relationship is hard work for him. He has a lot of work to do. You're further along. So that's part of what's funny about that is that, but what you need to remember when you're feeling impatient is he's working hard. It's hard work for him. Many things that are just givens for you are things that he has to work at. Now, when I look at the intellectual side of things, and also, just air in general, thought in general, this is a really interesting thing. He's got the Emperor, and you've got the Seven of Wands, which I never would have guessed. It's just a really interesting thing. So there's a way where I think when you have a strong heart connection, I don't think that wavers. But intellectually and how you think about your relationship, you have to work on that a lot. It gets away from you. And then you think, and then you rein yourself back in, and you have to go, okay, and reorganize. But it's a struggle for you to how you think about it all. What's odd is that he's got the Emperor over here, where there's a way where, and that picks up on that World card. For him, I think he feels like this is totally the right place for him. This is his kingdom. And it's funny how that bounces off the World card. This is the one thing he does know, that he's certain of, that this is where he needs to be. He has no doubt. That's a very interesting thing. In terms of passion and power, this is going to open you up more and more. You have the Page of Wands. So that would lead me to say that this relationship is going to really open you up in a lot of ways. It's going to deepen your passion. It's an opportunity for you to keep growing and becoming more and more powerful also. So there's empowerment here for you. For him, he's got a lot of, he's got the Page of Cups. So there's a way for him where he's like, still struggling with finding his own power. There's still a way where he kind of retreats into this kind of youthfulness, a little bit of an unconscious place, you know. He just kind of goes back there. So he's not meeting you on that level yet. And that is probably part of your frustration. But that's a beginning place too. I think, you know, there's growth there. Where you guys both are emotionally, interesting. You bring, on the emotional plane, you have the Hermit, which is a funny card, because I think when we're talking about relationships and you get the Hermit in the water place, it tells me two things. One is that you are, this is the card of Virgo, you are there to serve. That you have a willingness to serve emotionally and to shed the light, which is a good thing. Because one of the things that this reading seems to indicate is that in some ways you're going to be a little bit more of the teacher, right? So it's a good thing that you have that. But the other thing that I see when I look at that is a certain loneliness. I think there are times when you feel you're in it alone a little bit because you're having to be the one holding that lamp, you know? So there are times when you feel unpartnered. And that's hard. What I would say about him emotionally, he has the Knight of Pentacles. There again, what I see here is longevity. This is somebody who's in it, who's going to stay in it. And it may seem like he makes baby steps, but he's going to keep on, keeping on, keeping on. He won't quit. He won't. This is somebody who's in it for the long haul, the Knight of Pentacles. You know, which interestingly enough, that is also the card of Virgo. He's got a Virgo, you got a Virgo. You have Virgo on the major arcana. He has it on the lesser arcana. Part of what that means is you are going to bring emotionally the sense of service in teaching and leadership. What he's going to bring is a willingness to support and to serve you and to stand there and hold on to the fort while you go off and grow. Right? Yeah. What do you each bring? You bring the Hangman. So the very thing that makes this relationship sometimes hard is also the very thing that will empower you. And again, this is a very unselfish card. It's a beautiful card. He brings a wounded heart, the Three of Swords. He's been hurt. There's a part of him that needs to be healed. But there's also wisdom there from that suffering. You know? Now we go to our triads. In the past,
Okay, what did Dan have at birth?
Knight of Pentacles,
Knight of Pentacles.
which is Virgo.
Night or nine?
Night.
Night, oh, okay.
Yeah, mutable earth. That's Virgo. It's interesting. They both have Virgo in water. Oh, you asked in earth.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't read earth on either of you. What do you have and what does he have? Oh boy. Well, this is a little bit of a problem, but in the Three of Pentacles, you know, you've done your work on, you know, being stable, being financially wise, you know, getting yourself trained, you've got a career, you got all that stuff, you know, you're well established, you know. So, you know, you've done a lot of work there. He's got the Nine of Cups, which is, he still wants to play a little. He's prone to excess. He can, you know, he likes his toys, and he certainly probably likes to drink a little, and well, you know, party. There's a little bit of a party animal there. And that may be difficult, again, for you sometimes, because this is a much more serious card, you know. But what I would say about this tendency of his is it is counterbalanced. You know, it's interesting, when we look at his north-south, that's his weakest. His east-west is really strong, you know. You know, on the level of what he's thinking and his thoughts, he's really committed, he's really clear. On the level of his emotional connection, he's in there for the long haul. But in terms of, you know, how he relates to power and his own sexuality and how he relates to the work aspect of things, you know, some growth, room for growth there, right? And that's probably why you have to be where the patience is required, you know? Going back to this first triad, the past. Well, you know, the funny thing is, you have the Two of Swords and you have the Eight of Wands, and then it culminates in the Queen of Wands. And what I'm going to say about this is, you could read this one of two ways. I could read this, I could look at one card for her and one for him, and then the culmination, or I can read them for both. And in this case, I'm sort of inclined to read them for both. I think what happened in the beginning of this relationship was there was an attraction. That's that Two of Swords. There was something that you both instinctively felt or knew. There was a recognition. It came on very fast. That's the Eight of Wands aspect. Very rapid movement. You got together really quickly, and there was a lot of connection and a lot of power. And that's the Queen of Wands. But there was probably also a lot of chaos. Especially if I read it this way. If I look at it coming of emerging in this intuitive connection, and then there being a big zap at first, and then there is actually, and this I think is true from you guys, because you went through some sort of breakup early on, right? Yeah, so then there was a separation or a going away, which would be that Eight. And then we come to the present, which is the Ace of Wands, the Wheel of Fortune, and the Queen of Swords. Whoa, okay. He's going through, now I'm going to read him, her, and the middle. He's going through a lot of ups and downs right now in terms of the Wheel of Fortune. He's going through, you know, he's in probably riding a roller coaster to some degree. Certainly in terms of his work, but also I think in a deeper sense. That, you know, he's just trying to find his equilibrium right now. You, on the other hand, you've got the Ace of Wands, so you're really focused right now on developing your own power, which I think is true. You know, that's part of this vision quest that you're going on and all of that. The only thing that's a little bit cause for concern about those two things being together is it culminates in the Queen of Swords. The good news about that is you're going to get rid of some you know, nonsense between you. There's going to be some cleaning up that's going to occur, but it can be a little bit of a harsh energy. So be cautious about that. And the reason why I say that is I'm aiming it at you, partly because you're the one I'm reading for, but also because, you know, you're going to be picking up a lot of your power. When we first pick up new powers, we sometimes don't realize how strong we are. And he's in a tender spot. So don't bash him over the head. You know? Don't bash him over the head. Off with his head. The right way. Future. So there's going to be some disruption in the future. There's the Five of Pentacles. You guys are going to have some struggles, and it's probably going to be around the organizational stuff. You know, the running of the house, that kind of stuff. Maybe some leftover money issues or whatever. So there'll be some of that. The one thing you want to be careful of is letting things move too fast. So that's the Knight of Swords. So if you guys start to get butt heads, slow it down. Slow it down. Don't let it move too fast. But then where we come to is the Chariot. So that's a card of real balance, of being able to kind of get everybody moving in the right direction, moving together, and having a really clear vision of where you're going. So I think this is good. You know, you have a lot of capacity, and here in a nutshell is the whole thing. Ooh, Judgment. So that's hearing the call of the horn of Gabriel and rising from death. So there is a way where by doing this, working this relationship together, you know, you are going to be able to really remake yourselves. Does that help? Good. All right. Did you guys get a sense of how I did that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Susie.
I had a question about these triads that, say in a marriage, the one on the left is the woman and the one on the right is this is the man, or just the two people in the relationship.
Right.
What is the one in the middle? So you
It's
read
kind of the
one,
melding of the
three.
two. It's like what happens when I put these two things together, and this is the energy that gets created. Another way of looking at it is you don't have to read it quite that rigidly. You don't even have to say this is her and this is him, and you can just sort of say these are the elements of what's going on right now. You know, because sometimes it's fairly clear what piece belongs to whom, and sometimes it's not, and it really doesn't matter. It's just like this is what's going on. So like when I actually got to this final one, I didn't read it so much as her and him, because it just didn't fit for me. But I looked at the future and I said, okay, so what I'm seeing is there's going to be, disruptions that have to be overcome, disorganizations that have to be overcome in the household, and there's going to be a tendency toward hastiness between them that needs to be moderated, but then we get this kind of wonderful balance,
What kind of things show up if there is like true crisis coming that,
Well, there's lots of things, like, Nine of Swords is often not such a great card. In terms of relationships, I'm usually not happy to see the Ten of Swords. That usually means kaput,
Means what?
Ten of Swords, yeah. That's not a happy outcome.
and where would that
Unless
be
they're
placed?
looking to end it.
Right, yeah. Well, that might be in the future, you might see that. The Three of Swords can be pretty, swords of any kind tend to be uncomfortable in relationship. In general, when I'm talking about relationships, cards that indicate commitment tend to be the cards that are most relationship friendly, generally, unless of course the context really stinks, is the Two of Cups. That's often about the beginning of relationships. Three of Cups. Three of Cups, though, remember how we talked about this last time? The Three of Cups tends to represent the sort of, I'm in love aspect of relationships. That kind of like, that wonderful hormonal burst you get when you're first in love, and you haven't yet figured out that, he always throws his towel on the floor. Yeah, so there's your Three of Cups. That's usually a pretty happy. Six of Cups, very happy. That's, harmonious relationships. Ten of Cups tends to be often a marriage card. And, cards I am less happy to see in relationship readings. Three of Swords, that can be disappointment. But sometimes it's disappointment that leads to, maturity. So it's not necessarily an awful thing, but it doesn't usually feel too good. Then there's always, the Nine of Swords is anxiety. That when you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing with this joker? Ten of Swords, that's it. Queen of Swords, off with his head. Other ones that are not so great, Seven of Swords, Five of Swords, both of which represent conflict. Ditto, the Five and the Seven of Wands. Tend to represent conflict. So those are just, and then, other cards as they appear. The Devil occasionally could mean addiction, or it could be an abusive relationship. Hierophant in the wrong situation could be a control freak, trying to run your life,
What about the Tower?
The Tower. Yeah, the Tower could definitely indicate dissolution or disruption. The Hangman, if you have a lot of cards that indicate inappropriate caretaking, the Hangman is not a good card, because then it becomes the card of the martyr. But that's a very contextual reading. That would really depend on the context.
What about the Page of Cups? For
Page of Cups
relationships?
is just indicates it's an opportunity for emotional growth. Pages are usually about opportunities. And it's a somewhat immature card. but it sometimes comes up when somebody's just sort of opening up to new relationships. You know, like maybe they've been, you know, either not in a relationship for a long time or they've been squirreled away and, you know, suddenly like, whoa, new things are arising, you know, so that could happen. All right, why don't you guys, let's try it. You guys want to try? Yes.
Can that spread work, like, let's say you don't have a relationship with someone, but you want to have? Will
No,
that pick up?
if you don't have a relationship but you want to have, then I would try, maybe a Celtic cross. Everybody, come on back.
Similar to my wife.
So, how's this going for you? Do you have any big questions about this? Because we're pretty much at the end of our day, so we want to take some time and wrap it up here. Any questions about this particular layout? Does it seem pretty clear?
It seems like Tarot 205.
Yeah, it's complex. It is
A little
complex.
complicated.
But keep playing with it, you know. And what I would advise you guys to do is take some time for the next little while, and in particular, do the Celtic cross. Try to do the Celtic cross at least, you know, every day. Do a reading, you know, for about something or for someone. Try to just keep doing readings, all right? And then when somebody has a relationship question, take a stab at it. What's the worst thing that'll happen? Well, you won't have a brilliant reading, so what? You know, the more you do it, the easier it gets. And then you start to make connections and it gets easier, you know? And keep playing with the cards on a daily basis. I think, though, if you can even come out of today with a good mastery of the Celtic cross, that's a brilliant thing. So practice, practice, practice. And if you guys want, maybe sometime, you know, in 4 or 5 months or something, we'll do another day and we'll do like the Tree of Life, and we'll do some more, you know, we'll do some more layouts, and we'll play around some more. But the main thing you need to do now is get out there and practice. And remember, you've got to read the cards in context, which is why we lay them all out before we start the reading. No card has meaning in and of itself. It has meaning in terms of where it is in the layout. That's crucial, right? So just keep playing with it, keep playing with it.